Welcome to Building Kansas City. I'm Doug Wilder, your host, bringing you weekly stories from entrepreneurs, leaders shaping Kansas City. Whether you're established or just starting out, there's something here for everyone. Let's build KC together. Okay, let's get going. We're back on our podcast, Building Kansas City. I'm going to let these fine gentlemen introduce themselves. It's the first time for me to have multiple guests, so this will be a treat today. So why don't we start over here with Jordan?
Sure. Jordan Chapman. I am a wealth advisor with Prevail.
I'm Adam Doran, also wealth advisor at Prevail.
And I'm McLean Kistner, and I'm the manager of private investments and alternative assets at Prevail.
Oh, nice. So why don't we start with what is Prevail?
Good. Yep.
Good question. So Prevail is a financial firm in town. So we started in 2017, and we had the backbone of a much larger company. Our CEO, Carrie Lawing, founded a firm in the mid-'80s, exited with a few other executives around 2017, and started Prevail. It was really within the opportunity to kind of hit reset. So they went through this liquidity event and thought to themselves, well, how do I want my money managed? And the previous firm was fairly traditional in how it scaled, and most firms scale by gathering assets under management, and the format is typically, what's your risk tolerance, what's your income, we're going to put you in one of three portfolios, conservative, balanced, growth, and then you just scale. And during the exit, there was a bit of a revelation of, well, this format is a little bit broken. It takes a lot of control out of the investor's hands. A lot of research was put into portfolios that consistently outperform or are consistent with the market. Let's say like the S&P 500. And how do they do that? What they found, they looked into a lot of endowments, so like Harvard, Yale, and what they found were really three things that were taken into consideration. One was taxes, and how we really feel that that's the biggest headwind that investors are going to face as far as how they create wealth. Mm-hmm. Volatility. So volatility is here to stay. There's a crazy stat. It's like 40 out of the most 50 volatile days in stock market history have been within the last 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy to think about. Crazy. So if you're in a standard portfolio with basically ETFs and mutual funds, that is going to ride with the ebbs and flows of the market, right? So it's a bit of a roller coaster. And over time, it'll perform, right? Like, you're not doing a bad thing. But we really wanted to figure out how to leverage volatility and use it as an asset. And really the only way to do that is to trade in individual stocks. And so there's still some ETFs and mutual funds in there, but individual stocks where we will find entry points and exit points for every individual stock. And then we'll enter through our data analytics and our research at a time we feel is right, and we will set the exit price, exit, and if we still like that particular equity, we'll enter again and just cycle through it. So it's extremely active trading, but the only way we can do that is we have a trade team in-house. We have a financial advisory board committee that meets once a week, and so it's really hard work, but that's a big differentiator for us. And then alternative assets. So assets that are not correlated to the market, that can create wealth, but also produce income. And so within that is our real estate division, which we really launched. We launched a couple years ago. We will vet a lot of real estate deals, and we'll do about 6 to 8 deals a year at this point. I know we're going to scale that up. And we're kind of agnostic as far as what it is. We don't do a ton within the retail space, but we like multifamily, we like warehouses, we've done a long-term care facility, we've done extended stay hotels, so we're all over the map as far as that goes. But that's how we've really become disruptive, as being this boutique family office type shop But those are the three things that we really take into consideration. And real estate is, I mean, when we looked into those endowments, you can have 20 to 30% of your portfolio allocated to real estate, and it'll produce 50 to 60% of your return. So you're getting great return without as much risk that you would be exposed to if you were just fully concentrated into the stock market. So we've done a ton of research in that space. We like the deals we've done. And that's really our story. That's our backdrop as far as who we are and how we approach wealth creation. But I'm really excited to have Adam on here in McLean. Adam's background in real estate is really unique, so I thought it'd be fun for each of them to share their testimonial.
Yeah, I know investors like things nice and steady, but you guys in the business, the volatility, the chaos, the challenge, a little exciting for you guys to have some of that. I know you probably want to steady too, but I know it's like a firefighter. They get kind of bored staying at the station all day, so they kind of like that fire. As long as nobody gets hurt, you guys enjoy the chaos from time to time.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah,
it is, and I think investors and our investors are very knowledgeable and savvy, and I think that there is an appetite for diversification. What's new out there? There's people you read all these things. It just there's a larger appetite, I think, than we even knew, and Kerry knew when he started this 2 years ago, the real estate alternative assets, that people are smarter than you think. And if you stick all their money just in a fund and you call them once a quarter and say, here's how it's going, that's not how people want their money managed anymore. They want, as Jordan said, the control. They want the control. We're being able to give them the control through diversification, or if they want to put it all in real estate, however they want to go, we wouldn't advise that, but it's just giving that control back and being able to be a full financial board for each investor versus just having your advisor call you once a month to talk about stock portfolio. We have your advisor doing that, but then we have people like myself offering up alternative real estate. We have 401k divisions. We have multiple different lines that make you feel like even if you only have a small amount invested, you're as big as the big boys or some of the family offices.
What falls under alternative real estate?
Well, I guess alternative assets. So that would be not necessarily multifamily, but we're launching a little bit of a venture capital fund as well, and kind of starting to dip our toes into alternative things such as companies that are close to capitalization, not necessarily seed funding, but things that we can learn about and then get close to capitalization or commercialization, and then invest there. But we're growing it as we speak.
Nice.
And right now we have our multifamily extended stay hotels, which is a very interesting asset class for us, and asset because it can be underwritten and treated like multifamily. So we don't treat those as hotels or entertainment spaces because the average hotel night at a Hampton Inn person stays, I think it's 2 nights, and at an extended stay, it's 20 to 21 nights.
Oh, wow.
So you could almost model that out like an apartment, like in a multifamily,
Yeah.
and we found some success there.
So, as kids, were you guys the young kids that took your parents' allowance and stuck it in a jar and didn't spend it or waste it, or?
I was, I think, a little more riskier with my approach growing up, but no, I would say we're all different, and that's what's funny is we're really intentional on how we hire and how we team. We put a team of advisors around every client. We call it a financial board of directors, but I would say Adam probably was more so like that, wouldn't you say?
Actually, it's interesting, brings up why I got into this space. I was a police officer first.
Wow.
Did that for 16 years. And about 10 years into that career, I realized that I was a 10-year career professional and I was financially no better off than where I started. So I was brought up kind of that traditional mindset of, you get into something steady, stick with it. Mm-hmm. Over time, your financial situation improves. That didn't happen for me. If I felt like I was losing ground. So I personally went on a journey of how does real wealth work? And what's interesting is I'd had some meetings with financial advisors because I not knowing anything about the space, I'm going to go talk to an advisor. And the things that I heard from them versus, I had some people in my network that I knew had accumulated some wealth, some folks that owned businesses, invested in real estate. What I was hearing from the advisors didn't necessarily match up with what I was hearing from the people that had actually built wealth, which was really interesting to me. So my personal journey, through a lot of reading, attending seminars, talking to mentors, I learned that, 2 critical components and themes in common of people that have really built wealth. They owned businesses. They had ownership interest in real estate. And that's not what I was hearing from the advisors. It's kind of like what Jordan mentioned earlier, the traditional financial advisory path. It's all stock market focused. And while that might work for some folks, there was consistent themes that I was seeing that the people that had really built a significant net worth, they had involvement in other things. And so when I came into this profession in 2018 was when I retired from police work and got into this. My personal journey with having invested in real estate, having started a couple of businesses on the side while I was still a police officer, that played into what I brought to the conversations with clients and encouraging them of, hey, if you want to build real wealth over time, let's talk about owning a business, building and scaling your income, then taking the excess, pouring it into real estate. And those are the kind of conversations we have with clients here at Prevail, which again, I think makes us very different than the traditional model. We really believe the traditional model is broken for a couple of reasons Jordan mentioned earlier. Another big thing that financial advising, I think, has fallen short on addressing is taxes and the impact of taxes and how those erode wealth over time. And I'm not just talking about deferring tax by, I'm going to put money into a retirement plan this year and I'm going to take a deduction. We look a lot further out and say, historically, when we look at where tax rates are today, historically, they're actually pretty low. And when you look at our deficit as a country, and when you just look at historical trends, we just firmly believe in the future that tax rates are more likely to increase than they are to decrease. Mm-hmm. And so if that's going to happen, and most of America is shoveling all their money into these tax-deferred retirement accounts, it really takes away their control in the future of, maybe you've got a stockpile of $2 or $3 million, but what do you really have at the end of the day? And you don't know. It's going to be dictated by whatever the tax rate is at that time.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so we want to put people in more control by focusing on building tax-free wealth, and then strategies where not all of your capital is locked up in this retirement plan that you can't get to till you're 59 and a half, because our clients want to do things like buy ownership interests in businesses and real estate. And so to do that, you got to have access to capital. So we focus a lot on that too. How can we help you build assets that aren't locked up until you're 59 and a half?
Well, I'm not in your guys' world, but as I look at, even my own family, our grandfathers went to work every day. They worked hard, they made their money, and that was their life. I never remember my grandfather talking about investing or saving. My dad, a little bit more than that, but it was the same thing. We go to work, we work hard. And so it feels like, and I'm not in your world, like I said, it feels like this time right now, people are more centered on investing and understand that even if you're not a Warren Buffett, you can still invest and work that for you. But is that a trend that's going on now? Do you think younger people are seeing that more and more?
Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting. I had a phone call with one of my younger clients today. He's in his late 20s, doing really well, software professional. And he has we call it his play account. So aside from the assets we manage for him, he has his own account where he's doing some independent trading and whatnot. And I would definitely say that yes, especially with the rise of different platforms out there, you've got the Robinhoods and a couple others. Definitely is something that this younger generation is very interested in having some independence on, making some of their own decisions around those investments and whatnot. I still think the advisor can add value to the conversation because we can help clients think through different decisions they're making. We can think about tax implications, help them with really understanding risk and managing that. But yeah, definitely with the younger generation, they are going to, if we don't provide what they're asking for, they will go find it out there.
So they'll go heavy into like digital currency and stuff. It's like, you bring up a good point though, Adam. I think the younger generation is really receptive because they don't, when we present to them, hey, you've always heard it described to you this way. Like if you're going to go meet with an advisor, it's stock market correlated. And it's very eye-opening, I think, for them when you can show how all of these strategies are really intertwined. So there's tax advantages with real estate, being able to have access to capital to fund those deals. Those produce income. The portfolios produce income, which fund other strategies. And Adam hit on this, but when you talk about control, when people go to retire, they have all these different levers that they can be really strategic and intentional with to pull at the right time. So it's like control can then be given to them instead of just being like, hey, I'm saving for retirement. in a tax-deferred account, and I have no idea what that amount will be in the future.
Do you feel most know that without your direction? Or are people becoming more comfortable? Because my take is, fellas like you guys really geek out on the numbers and you love that kind of stuff. And when you're in the weeds, it's just exciting and challenging for you, which is great. And even in my own head, I prefer someone like you guys explaining it to me. It's, it doesn't always, I don't always get it. I don't understand it. I'm not in it every day like I am with my job. And so I'm just trusting individuals like you guys to tell me which levers to pull,
right,
and trusting you guys. Do you find that more so that direction, or people becoming more self-guided?
I would say definitely our clients rely pretty heavily on the strategy from one year to the next. And going back to the concept of a financial board of directors, we generally know and are acquainted with the other professionals in our client's world. So their tax preparer, their estate planning attorney, and we're a part of those conversations, having a round table with the client to say, okay, if we do this over here, how does it impact this other thing over here? And making sure that we don't make what feels like a good decision, but then we made a negative impact down the road. So that's something we have to be really intentional and careful about. The other thing is, and I'll just give you one specific example of something that happened kind of under the radar that not a lot of folks know about until they inherit something. So when the Secure Act passed back in, was it 2020? Does that sound right? I think it was 2020 was the Secure Act passed. There was a tax increase there, and it's not talked about a lot. And that tax increase was, it used to be that if you were a child of a parent who passed away and you inherited their qualified retirement account, their IRA or their 401k, used to be that the distributions you would have to take out of the account, you could spread over your expected lifetime. That changed in 2020 when the Secure Act passed, and now if you inherit that same retirement account, you have to liquidate the whole thing in 10 years and pay all those taxes in a 10-year time frame. So if what that does in effect is most people are right around their 50s, their peak earning years, when they inherit those accounts from parents who are passing away. They probably don't need any more taxable income, but they're going to have it because they got to take it out of the account and pay tax. So that's just one thing that's kind of happened in recent history.
What was the end game to that switch?
I would say that was the federal government trying to accelerate some of their receivables, because the federal government keeps track of the money that goes into retirement accounts. That gets reported every year. So they understand what kind of receivables are out there. And a way of forcing that to come due faster would be when you inherit an account, you got to pull it all out now and pay the taxes in 10 years. So that's just one thing that's happened in recent history. I'm sure there will be more to come, but like just paying attention to and being aware of the changing environment out there, clients rely on us heavily for that kind of stuff because it's a lot to keep up with.
So am I hearing for Prevail, you guys are handling individual accounts as well as business accounts and that sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Our primary clientele are typically business owners. When we do corporate capital strategies or any type of planning around the business, helping them exit. I mean, we have a sales side advisory where we'll help focus on exits. We do corporate 401ks. A lot of times when we're doing that kind of work and getting into the weeds, it'll naturally kind of segue into individual planning as well.
Mm-hmm. I know, Adam, being a police officer, McLean, maybe Jordan, you guys talk about your path to this, where you guys are in your career now.
Sure. Excuse me. I was in I graduated from SMU down in Dallas in 2008. I worked for Jones Lang LaSalle, a very large commercial real estate company down there, right in 2008, right during the Depression. Sure. There. So very, very exciting time to be a young go-getter that had no idea what the world was about, and I learned very fast. But they were hiring, and I wanted a job, so I was there. I was with them for about 10 years, doing a lot of things on the tenant rep side, representing tenants, and then helping them once they have a multi-portfolio. I kind of managed it for them. Did that for a while. Met my wife, who's from here, a very common Kansas City story. We moved here to be closer to her family, whom I love. And then I kept my commercial real estate career going with the group Cressa here, a tenant rep firm. And I did that through COVID. And after COVID, a lot of commercial brokers were leaving the space, especially I specialized in office, especially large office, 20 to 30,000 square feet spaces. Those, especially in Kansas City, dried up very fast. They're starting to come back a little bit, but not much. So I pivoted a little bit, and I called up my former best friend from when I grew up in North Carolina. He was running a sports science gym that had just gotten some traction from the state of North Carolina for some Olympic teams that had been training with them. So they got a little bit of money. He asked me to come help pretty much business development because he had no idea what to do with this large windfall that they just got, and to also help fundraise for the teams for these past Olympics and things like that. So it's something totally different. I traveled to Charlotte quite a bit, and I did that for about 14 months. And I was talking to Jordan, having some coffee one time, and I have 3 little kids. I didn't want to travel. I wanted to blend my experience in real estate with fundraising, capital raises, and it turned out Prevail and Carrie were starting they'd already started it 2 years ago, this private investments division. It was small. They needed some help running it, and it fell right in line. I love the mission of Prevail. I was a client with them before I started, so I'm like the hair club for men guy, right? Not only is it, I'm also a client, and the mission is real. They're not just blowing smoke. The thought of control and not being whims to the market, to the political issues we're having, to the geopolitical. If you're relying on your retirement, and all of a sudden, Israel does a full-on invasion somewhere, and then it changes. It changes the global dynamics, and then rates change. It as they said, you all of a sudden realize you do not have nearly as much control as you do. So that drew me to help for my own personal self, and just to help others that were my age, like mid-30s, getting into their prime years, and maybe had a little bit of dry powder to guide them on the best places to do it. And we found, I know we're not the only ones, multifamily. If you vet enough deals, and we have a very specific process, then you can find great returns. We won't do a deal unless it's over a 20% internal rate of return. And we have just found that our clients can't get enough. They and we want to expand it into more of an industrial portfolio, stay away from commercial offices for the next little bit. Industrial, I think, in my opinion, in the next 18 to 24 months is going to reach a peak, and then it will fall off a little bit, but the valuations are not reaching what you can get on returns right now. There's still a good opportunity there. And yeah, so I got excited about all of it, and now that we're launching a little VC arm, or trying to, that's even more exciting, because the conversations you can have are just so much more fun, and get people feel like if they're investing in something that isn't just a stock and bond like their neighbor, if they're investing in a real estate project that I can go see and touch, and I can see I can see that the cars in the parking lot they're nice. It looks like there's some nice tenants here. I feel confident in this. That is what I think draws people to Prevail, and what drew me there to work there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I hear that story more than I hear it in reverse when we moved to Kansas City because my wife has family. I don't hear a lot of we moved to Kansas City because my husband has family.
Amen.
Jordan, what about you?
It's funny. I knew, so I met my wife at KU. We moved to Dallas right after, and my wife and McLean's wife actually worked together in Dallas. So we ended up kind of hanging out toward the end of both of our times there, and then reconnected when we moved back, and it was the same story. I was actually, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but I was selling commercial playground equipment. So locally in town, we did, I still did it here for a little bit before joining Prevail. So we did Meadowbrook, that large playground there. We did some stuff at Shawnee Mission Park.
That seems like a really hard sale.
Yeah, there's a lot of when you're dealing with municipalities and stuff like that. It's funny how political a playground can be. It is kind of a long cycle, and then constructing it takes quite a bit of time. Yeah. So the 15 in the Mahomies one was the last one we did right by the plaza. So really neat kind of landscape type. They're kind of artistic and really neat community spaces that enhance where you're living, and I enjoyed it, but was drawn to Prevail through a few events. I went to a dinner, saw a speaker, spent some more time around it. I was like, gosh, this is super unique. And I think where we, from an advisory standpoint, where we all landed in our careers is we kind of felt like, yeah, this is fun. I like what I'm doing. I don't know how fun your job was, Adam, but I think you did like it.
Yeah.
Adam was also a hostage negotiator, which he didn't say. He failed to mention, but Adam's got some chops.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, and thanks for your service as well.
Absolutely.
You'll have to break into some of those. I want to hear a couple of those
He's got some
stories.
crazy stories. So I think we all kind of felt like when you're working in the corporate world, it's just you kind of hit this ceiling of, okay, this is nice. I can make a living doing this, but do I want to go and build something really unique and special and surround myself with people that are going to really push me beyond what I thought I was capable of? And so Prevail's done a really good job of selecting those type of people that, we all enrich each other, and I just feel very fortunate to be a part of it. But yeah, that was my background. Once we wanted to start having kids and stuff, it was just back to Kansas City. There was no other option. And it was like kind of during the 2015, 2014 World Series run, and we're in Dallas going home being like, what's going on? I got a little FOMO here, missing out on all this action. And Kansas City, it's crazy. I feel like in the last 10 years, it felt like the World Series run kind of kickstarted this crazy growth. But we moved back. I grew up here, and it was like we moved to a new city. It was like a different city that I hadn't explored yet. I mean, it was just downtown. They've just done a phenomenal job at downtown and all the growth. I mean, here in Lenexa, the city center, everything that's going on, it's just Kansas City's awesome.
It's been exciting. I'm originally from Omaha, so I've been down here since 2019, and yeah, it's been exciting to venture out and to see all the little pockets of stuff that's going on from the crossroads. Even I ventured out to Lee Summit and went downtown. I didn't realize that little Main Street area was even there, which was super cool. My wife and I love that kind of stuff. Little unique shops down there and places to eat. So then you run into that all over this place, and I think that really provides a pretty good atmosphere in this city.
Yeah, each neighborhood's got its own personality and
that's exactly right.
Something unique that they bring to the table, but it's great food, great people. Omaha, it's good people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, it's the same cloth. Obviously, it's a little bit larger down here, but I do feel there's some of the same stuff going on in Omaha that's going on here. They're really working hard to develop their downtowns and bring in the food scene and the culture. But it's neat to visit all the little pockets around here because everybody does have a little bit of their own attitude and goes about things a little different here, which I really like. Yeah. Makes it challenging. What are we talking for staff at Prevail? How many people we got over there?
We have around, what is it, about 50?
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, I'd say between 40 and 50.
Yeah, 30 advisors, and then the rest like kind of coordinators, support staff. And one of the things, I'm one of the newer people to join Prevail, the three of us. One of the things that I really like about it that I think is unique is our entire recruiting process is very advanced, and like instead of just, I know a lot of Northwestern Mutual, you just mass hire as many people as you can. Do you have a book of business? What's your network? Come on in. We'll just try to bleed you dry. At Prevail, there's personality tests, multiple interviews, understanding that they're not just bringing in an advisor to hopefully make the AUM rise. They're trying to bring someone who can join these financial boards and team with Adam or team with Jordan or team with me, or maybe they're more of an admin kind of like details oriented. Okay, great, we have a great position for them. Okay, they're an entrepreneur. They want to get out and have 15 meetings a week. Okay, this is a great spot for them, but maybe they're a little bit too combative, so they might not fit with our culture. And there was a real push that I've learned about the culture, a very deliberate plan to not just start because Carrie had already exited a firm, done very well. There was not only to change the business model on its head, but I think to hire the right kind of people and the different kind of people that all complement each other. And it's impressive to see. Like I said, is a little bit newer on the scene to Prevail.
Well, in our business, we're bidding obviously product against our competition and that sort of thing. Is it the same in your guys' world? Is it are you more just competing with the market itself? And
I'd say it's as much product oriented. I think it's strategy oriented.
Approach
in our
philosophy.
philosophical outlook.
Yeah. Approach and philosophy.
Yeah, I would say that it's we don't go into any meeting or introductory type of conversation with anyone and have a particular solution in mind. We've got to dig deep and figure out what the needs are, do a needs analysis, and then we'll have multiple whiteboard sessions as far as, hey, this is what we feel like will be tremendously impactful for you. What are your thoughts? And it's really collaborative. We want to get the client's feedback too and make sure they're completely bought in. I think what's unique is we want it to be a situation where a client can go out to dinner and get excited and tell their friends, hey, we're doing this and here's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is different than just, we're investing.
Well, I mean, when a customer is really excited about who's ever providing them the service, that word of mouth is way better than any other kind of marketing or advertisement for sure.
That's our bread and butter. Yeah, is our clients getting fired up about what they're doing, and then word just kind of spreads.
Well, it sounds exciting, right? Because it sounds like the world of advising and investing is really just now a collaboration of ideas and open mind and changing and approaching it a little bit different, where maybe 25 years ago it was, this is your portfolio, this is what we do. Is that kind of spot on, or is it?
I'd say that's still kind of the standard.
I was going to say, I think you just hit on a really key concept to understand about our world, which is, we're located in a part of the country that you can throw a rock and hit a millionaire's house. And from the standpoint of financial firms, they're also a dime a dozen where we're located here in Kansas City. So it's a highly commoditized industry. To your question about, are you competing on products and whatnot? I think most people are. I think what you have to do in this business to stand out and to be successful is you've got to talk about how you're different and why that would be valuable to somebody. So hopefully we've done a good job as we kind of shared some of the ideas and our thought processes and how we go through the client process. Hopefully that has become apparent of how we're having a different approach.
Yeah, agreed. So what do you guys see in for us, and what we're kind of seeing? We're usually running about 6 months out with what things are being estimated at. Sometimes a year, sometimes two on bigger commercial projects, of course. But it really looks like to us 2025 is going to be a boom in our industry, especially for commercial. Are you guys seeing any of that through what you guys deal with?
Yes, and I think to add on to that point, what we're seeing starting this year and it'll run into 2025 is there's a lot of COVID-era loans that are coming due, and whether it's on a commercial building or a multifamily deal, and a lot of them are unable to be paid back. So there is a great opportunity right now. Obviously, commercial buildings, I don't know if that's the best investment right now, but there are, in multifamily, we've one that we are looking at right now in Texas. The only reason we even have a shot at getting it is because the buyer that was ready to close, he had an IO only, interest only loan that is due at the end of this year, and it was for a substantial amount, and he had to sell this multifamily to get the cash to pay it. And I think that's going to become more of a common story in our world and in my world, the investing world, not necessarily speaking on the advisors, but it's something that which is why we're very deliberate. We'll look at our 100 multifamily deals and pick one. So we want to make sure that the deal is right, but the right deals are out there. And I think that's what's exciting, is that there's great opportunity in a lot of these business owners that, because of like I said, starting in COVID and some of these loans that are they've ballooned up and they're unable to be paid back. And if you have the capital to capitalize, sorry for a weird sentence there, then you can, that's where we are and that's where we want to be. And you can deliver great returns with some value add on some of these, especially B and B plus level multifamilies, where they just have been completely mismanaged, whether it's the owner having no money to pay a real property manager to be on site, so they'll hire some national firm that will send a temp down, that they do not care about it because it's one of 1,000 in their portfolio, and to them they're still getting their fee. And so what we do, that's where we find the opportunities in the market to jump. And if you don't jump fast at these, they go quick. We've learned. So we're getting smarter every day, and I think the retail investor is getting smarter every day, to your point, whether it's in COVID with people having extra cash and buying GameStop stock or whatever that is, they're kind of realizing that, okay, maybe the stock market is too crazy, but what, to Adam's point, what else is there? And we're seeing a big opportunity, like I said, with a lot of these loan defaults and loan payments that are due, and people are.
So explain that a little bit. The COVID era loans.
Sure. So a lot of these loans that were given during COVID had incredibly low rates, and so people could borrow money for free almost.
People were hopping on a lot of deals.
Yes. So and people had, whether it was
doing deals just to do deals.
Yes. Whether they had money from the government they were getting a little bit, or they had their own, just whatever. There was an influx of capital and a very, very cheap capital at the time. So a lot of these, whether it's even bigger firms, gobbled up multiple multifamilies, gobbled up industrial, gobbled up commercial space, and now we're seeing, and they're highly levered on them, and then the rates have completely, flip-flopped, and now they are trying to offload. And some people have enough capital to ride it out, but there's plenty of groups and owners that are looking to offload, and that's kind of where we, get in there and find real value for our clients and investors.
Like you said, 2025, you mentioned, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity that we haven't seen in a long time.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like you guys feel the same way?
I feel really optimistic. I feel, just telling these guys, I feel really good about this last quarter for us. I feel really good about what's happening, what seems to be happening for us next year. So, you watch the news, obviously it's always doom and gloom and interest rates and inflation and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think anybody ever really gets to hear it from actual people on the ground that are going to be factual and tell the truth, and it's so politicized one way or the other. I just really want to just know the facts, right? What's really going on out there? How is all this affecting us? And we were just talking the other day. It's in our industry, people are just, well, I just want to wait till the election is over before we start the remodel or rebuild the house. And to my point, I'm like, why do we always say that? We say that every single time there's an election cycle, and nothing really changes on that minute level of you building a house or you remodeling your project, and you wait for that to happen. I just never really understood that mindset. So it feels like it's a little bit looser this year. It feels like people are just kind of ignoring that situation to a little bit and ready to move on stuff. So yeah, it looks promising for what's coming up.
At the end of the day, you're adding value.
Yeah.
To your property.
Yeah.
It's like, you could wait, I guess, but costs will ebb and flow, and it's like.
Yeah, I mean, the whole world would have to come crashing down, in which case we would all be in trouble. So at that point, it doesn't really matter.
At that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, your $50,000 or $100,000 remodel is probably going to add value, and that's just where you're going to be at. So, yeah, it's interesting. So, what's your day-to-day look like? You come into the office, what sort of thing hits you guys? I'm interested in, like, what's the pressures? What's the stuff that maybe gets you up at 4 a.m, like, I got to get to work, I got to take care of this?
It's a lot of, we do have a team which helps with, like, client responsiveness. Mm-hmm. If someone's out of pocket, on vacation, golfing, something like that, I mean, there's always multiple people to pick up an action item.
A financial advisor that golfs? What?
Yeah, I don't do it, but no, just I think, gosh, what keeps us up at night is just the world's always changing. We just have to be really on top of national news, of what's going on within your own community. We're not just in the market; we're involved in quite a bit of things that we have to have expertise around. So. I think everyone's story is going to be a little bit different. I think we're in, new meetings, client meetings, day in and day out. We love having people over to our office and our space. I think one thing that's really unique that we do is we have a heavy focus on events. Most of them are educational in nature. We'll have guest speakers, economists come in. We'll do real estate focused events. We'll do market focused events. But getting people in the door and familiar with, outside of just what we talk about in day-to-day meetings, it's really cool to see this community that builds up over time, that you're amazed at some of the conversations and connections that happen from our events. And so that's a big focus for us is we like getting people in the door and getting them exposed to education and get them to think differently and meet different people. And so that really drives a lot of activity for us on a month-to-month basis.
Day to day for me, when I think about pressures, I think about client situations and questions that come up where there's not necessarily a known solution, but they want to get on the phone and talk through something important with somebody. So it could be, they're in the process of trying to sell a house. They've got a contract on the next one they're buying, and now the buyer on the house they're selling fell through. I share those. I think this is part of what makes me a good advisor, but it's a two-edged sword because you can get emotionally involved. But I feel a heavy sense of responsibility to the clients when they get into those kind of difficult situations. Sometimes it's, we forgot about some income we had earlier in the year, and then we just did this Roth conversion, and now we met with our tax pro, and we realized that we're going to have a bigger bill than we thought. So those are some of the things that add pressure.
Life is always happening to
life
everybody.
stuff happening.
And we're very involved with everyone's lives.
Well,
so.
to your credit, I think showing or being emotionally involved is a good thing, not a bad thing. I want my advisor to be a little invested in me and engaged, and even if that is a little bit emotional, lets me know that you're real. You're not a robot. It's not a standard procedure. It's something that you really care about. So, we talk about that here with the product that we sell. Some of these people save, for a very long time to remodel their house or put in a new granite countertop or stone countertop, and it's a lot of money, and we have to take that serious because this is a big deal to them. We do this every day. It's second nature to us. We don't even think about it, but when we go into their house and she's kind of starting to cry a little bit because she's so excited, we have to understand that this was a big deal for her to have that, and I would assume it's the same thing when all this stuff's going on where they may not be as educated about it or as savvy as you guys. So I think that's a good connection.
It's interesting too, some of these life events that happens, it starts a conversation that probably should have occurred, and for whatever reason it didn't. I'll give you an example. I've had 2 clients whose dads passed away this year. I don't know, it's the year that people's fathers are passing away. And so that has spurred an estate planning conversation, which frankly, if we're doing our job in a perfect world, we cover all those bases. But the reality is life's not perfect, and the sequence doesn't always work out the same with every client.
Sure.
So I've had a couple meetings with estate planning attorneys in the last couple of weeks. Had a couple clients this year that have lost their job. A number of clients that have lost jobs, high-paying jobs, and so that's a pressure and a stress. So, I would say when I think about the day-to-day, other than what you already figured, which is that we're having meetings with people and whatnot, I would say the pressures, the stuff that weighs on me, and the harder part of the job, but also the more gratifying part of the job, is walking through those times with the clients, and almost being like another family member, but somebody that's on the outside looking in, and I think they count on us as a voice of reason and kind of thinking through the different scenarios.
Yeah, resolving those problems.
Yep. Well said.
Nice job, Adam.
Adam's a podcast pro.
Almost like he negotiated stressful situations before.
Right.
Yeah, is this podcast room more or less intense than a hostage situation?
Less.
To put a bow on it, Doug, from my world, a little bit different than these 2 guys is, what keeps me up, and the main pressures are twofold. A, losing a deal or missing out on a great deal, which is a same kind of vein of like losing potential income for our clients, for everything, and just like the satisfaction of being in a good deal. It's a great feeling. And secondly, which is a newer thing, is time. So for me, what makes me nervous is the time from closing to stabilization. Okay, that could be 6 months to 1 year. Okay, the time from stabilization to when we're trying to exit the deal. 30. A lot can happen. Is it a 5-year hold, a 7-year-hold? Within that time, what could go wrong? Kind of going right there is within this time. Does someone go bankrupt? Does something we can't even control happen? And then the third thing, which goes along with that, which is a new thing, which I don't know if people are that aware of it, is I think it kind of, when it goes along a little bit with kind of an anti-landlord mindset a lot right now, is in the last probably 18 months, there's been a huge uptick in fake apartment applications. And there is an entire roadmap on, there's websites like Reddit and things like that. There are whole threads, thousands of comments where people tell you, here's the site you go to for a fake Social Security, here's how you can do this, and you can, and it's, no one checks these. So what happens, it makes me nervous, is we'll get into what we think is a great deal, we'll visit the property, we'll look at their rent roll, which is basically the list of all the tenants and when their rents come up, and we'll see 30% of them are delinquent tenants that aren't even real and haven't paid in 3 months, and that doesn't come to light really until some of our diligence stages. So things like that where you really can't control it, and it's becoming a very, very large issue in our world, in the multifamily investing world, is that you can't trust the rent rolls you're given when you're, if they say we're at 90% occupied, you have to go there, talk to the property managers, understand what is going on and who is actually paying rent. Because a lot of times, like I said, these national property managers, they're just getting their paycheck and they're moving on their way. They have no incentive. Maybe there's a couple, they get a gift card if they get a new tenant in, but they're just trying to exist day to day, not lose their job, and they're not really worried if someone that they think is a millionaire that owns the building is losing out on a couple, 10% of their tenants. And in our world, that delta changes the entire deal. Wow. 95% occupied to even 90 changes all of our math behind it and all of the returns. So I would say those keep me up, and just the credibility of deals and who you're partnering with is the main concern there.
Are you saying like a building would actually not be occupied as much as what was originally claimed? Wow.
Correct. And a lot of that doesn't come if it's been the same owner for years. They never have any reason to audit it. They have never any reason to maybe they realize that the rents aren't as much as they think. But the effort to evict in some of these states is very difficult, and there's a lot of tenants' rights that go in direct competition with people trying to buy a building and landlords, which is why I said it's a general anti-landlord sentiment and kind of an eat the rich sentiment of a lot of people in America. And it just, in our world, it makes it very, very scary. And
well, didn't that kind of hit its head right after COVID?
It did, and especially in my old life in the tenant rep world, where I knew landlord building owners that were about to go bankrupt because none of their tenants could pay rent. They didn't want to pay the same rents because they're not going to the building, but the landlord is saying, I have a tax bill due right here that is quite hefty and I have no rents coming in, or people are breaking the lease. So it was a very chaotic world, and still is, and it's a little bit like that in multifamily. So you really need to have a great partner that you're partnering with in these deals and trust that they've done their job and we know we do our job. And that's how you get to a good deal. But there's a lot of scary ones out there.
Do you still seem like that's going to get a little more amplified with AI?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough on AI to know how, but it has to. There are some now. In the last little bit, they've added. I'm not going to know the name right. It's basically delinquent insurance, for lack of a better term, that you can purchase as a part of a sidecar to these deals. If you buy an apartment complex, you can purchase this, and that way you're protected. Maybe 80% of what their delinquencies were, you can get made whole in that world. But it's a huge problem, and it's something that we're dealing with and trying to kind of unpack every day.
Wow.
I was wondering when the AI question was going to come up, because I knew it would hit this conversation. I'm actually surprised we went this long before it came up. But McLean brought up, I think, a really good point, and it goes back to what you were talking about at the very beginning, was younger investors being more independent, kind of finding their own solutions. And I'm not against that in any way, but what I would say was McLean hit on the importance of due diligence. So when it comes to, because you can get online, build a profile on a number of different websites out there right now and invest in real estate passively. That is an option. You don't even have to be accredited at this point. You can do that. There's a number of different websites and platforms. But the one thing those don't offer that McLean just spoke to was, having a personal relationship with an advisor and a team that has physically visited a property, has physically leafed through the different pamphlets, the rent rolls and whatnot, and has done proper due diligence. That is a full-time job on its own. And so I think McLean brings up a really good point about how, he talked about the stuff that keeps him up at night. I invest personally, passively invest in some of Prevail's deals. I'm glad that's his concern, because I don't want it. And if I put myself in the shoes of a real estate investor who's maybe listening to this, or a business owner, it's like, I've thought about diversifying by owning some real estate. I've already got my own set of problems, so I love the idea of letting McLean and his team handle that for me. So I think that was just a really good thing that you touched on there, and it's important to realize, despite that there's maybe easy access online, you miss out on that personalized benefit of having a team that you're familiar with, that has really dug into it.
You're absolutely right. It's spot on, and it's hard to. So many people will offer a fund of a couple multifamily, and they'll just stick you in it, and they'll just keep getting the fees. So that's another. I'm kind of going off topic a little bit, but I think it's an important point. Is that as part of our growing our investment kind of division, is we're meeting with family offices and trying to learn, how do they invest, and what are their kind of pain points with traditional advisors, traditional deals that they do. And what I'm learning is, family offices, while they might have a lot of money, they don't necessarily hire the right people that do the right due diligence and get them into a lot of bad deals. And they also get put into these, whether it's a private equity fund, a REIT, something where they just get feed to death. One guy said, I think he said he was paying multiple millions in fees every year just to have not even a huge amount of money managed. And he was just like, this is our biggest pain point, is people see us as just this, cow that can be bled dry because it's, the fees are small in their world, but it's, so that's another thing I think where people are drawn to Prevail in our private investment offerings, where it's just a one-off multifamily deal. We're not going to keep hitting you with any kind of fees. We'll give you the updates and then we'll be out of that in 36 months. And if not, we'll keep the distributions. So kind of trying to learn how the big boys are doing it, how people think about it, the endowments, like Jordan mentioned earlier, what are they looking at? And that's just kind of another piece to what we're trying to build and grow here and offer something different than some of the other guys on the block here.
Well, it's funny, being ignorant of owning a multifamily complex or whatever always seemed not worth it with all the stuff that you hear about that's going on with tenants and evictions and collecting rent and all that stuff and maintenance and how people take care of the property when they rent. I mean, I've seen that stuff on jobs that we do and have to remodel, but this seems like it's a heartache that I would rather stay away from. So
that's specific to multifamily. I mean, that's stuff that, McLean has to stay up all night and worry about.
Yeah.
But, warehouses and things like that. Every property is going to be different. I think there's also some lure to, some people have built some wealth with Airbnb being a vacation home and things like that, or owning multiple and flipping homes around town. And there's some lure to getting involved in each individual LLC that we create per property. There's the tax advantages there, but also not having to be a landlord for these properties is there's some alleviation there, like kind of a weight off your shoulders of, man, my investment's not going to call me in the middle of the night when the hot water heater's broken or it needs a new roof. Not saying that those are bad plays to do individually, but that's another positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to note, I think, too, that we always invest alongside. Prevail will always have skin in the game with every transaction we do. It's another thing that is, in my world, is the sign of a poor partner, is if they present the deal of a lifetime and then they say, well, we're not going to put any money in it. Well, it's like, well, wait, what? So that's something I think we don't just
should be a bit of a red flag.
It's not a bit of a red flag. So that's something that we pride ourselves on, and that's part of our due diligence. Like Adam and I were kind of saying, that's why it's so important, and we have a team that look over hundreds and hundreds of deals, because if we're going to make all these proclamations of what we are and put our own money into it, it needs to be a good deal.
So Adam, real estate for you, that's your primary focus. So is this people buying and selling land for investments, or?
So real estate played a big part in my personal journey of how do you build wealth. And so that was one of the first things I did or changed about my picture when I was still a police officer, still trying to kind of turn things around, was started buying, investing in rental properties. And so some of the headaches McLean talked about, I've personally experienced, because I was the guy buying, owning, managing the contractor, managing the manager. So I know what that looks like. So my focus when I got into this was finding real estate investors out there that wanted an advisor that was real estate friendly, should I say, somebody that would support them doing that as part of their overall financial plan. And for my clients that aren't real estate investors, I do encourage them to look at that as an asset class, because I think it's so important. To your question about, is this, land flipping or whatnot, I have clients that are real estate investors that do land flipping. Also have folks that like to invest in multifamily, folks that like to flip single family properties, do Airbnbs. It's all over across the board.
Nice.
So I work
the
with
land questions. You had a recent, really neat case study with your client in North Dakota. As far as what we could do for them from a tax perspective, that was an incredible story.
Yeah. So as an example, had a farmer client up in the Dakotas that sold a piece of family land for a significant price. So that was a big liquidation event. And he was looking at, okay, if I sell this piece of land outright, then I have a massive tax bill this year. I mean, we did the math, and it was nearly 40% of it was going to go away in taxes when you accounted for federal and state. And so we were able to utilize a pretty unique strategy through utilization of a trust. And of course, we had to pull in attorneys. I'm not the expert on this, but know that it's a strategy. Pull in attorneys, and essentially he was able to through leveraging a trust and issuing a note to that trust, he can now collect the payment on that land over a period of time and spread that tax burden out over a period of years versus, we did the math. We saved him about $1.6 million in taxes.
Nice.
So that's adding value. Going back to what Jordan's like, how can we add value? That's adding value.
Absolutely.
We can save you a tax bill of nearly $2 million.
Yeah, it should excite that customer for sure, that client.
Doug, you've got a beautiful space here and an awesome showroom. When you guys go and do these remodels, I'm sure clients have opinions on what they want, but do you help kind of consult as well?
Yeah, we have a full sales and design team, and so people that have been in the industry for a long time and are very good at what they do. So, I've been in construction my whole life, so to go in and tear something apart and put it back together is very familiar with me. To put blue and green together is not. However, that works for us. So we do have a staff that does a really good job of that stuff. There's, again, the due diligence thing. A lot of customers are coming in now and have a pretty good idea of what they want, and they've educated themselves a little bit. They're taking the time to make the right decision. I don't think enough people do that in any industry.
Well, that is crazy, though, because you have trends. There are things that could be trendy, and then you put all this money into revitalizing, a property, and then 5 years later, you're like, this isn't going to sell.
Well, I will tell you,
in now,
so our showroom is usually designed around the wow factor and some of the trends. However, most people are usually too conservative to make that leap. So they might come in and go, I saw this green kitchen or this blue island. This is what I want. This is cool. And at 90% of the time at the signing of the order, it's, white shake.
It's not that. Yeah.
It's not that, So the showrooms are about showing you what's possible, what is actually out there, what the trends look like, what's new, that sort of thing. But people generally will play it safe and stick with what they know, and so that's generally what goes out the door. So it's fun. So it's nice to be part of that. Much like saving that client that much money, it's nice to fulfill someone's dream. It sounds corny, sounds a little hokey, but when you go into a house and you see somebody that has invested the time and money into their new kitchen, and they're just so excited about that space, it's a lot of fun. And one thing that I've always appreciated since I've been doing this literally my entire life. My uncle was a plumber and took me to the job sites when I was 12 years old. But everything we do in life, if you think about it, revolves around the kitchen. We meet with, I don't care how small the kitchen is or how large it is, your whole family at Thanksgiving is in the kitchen. We're not in the living room. Some of us are, but we're always in the kitchen. We're there during weddings and graduations and proms and funerals. And all that stuff is happening right there in the kitchen. So it was always fun for me to finish those rooms off and realize that I would be part of someone's life for, as hokey as it sounds, for the length of what their family's doing. Some of the most intimate things in there that are just family right in that kitchen space. I always thought that was a cool space to remodel.
Yeah, I mean, that very powerful. Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes, like, you just answered the why of why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. That's probably why you're successful. You're not just, wanting to do a kitchen remodel and then get paid and be done. You want to be a part of a family memory in a moment. And I think that's, that's what we're always trying to find too at Prevail. Like, why do we love doing this? And we can pass that through.
Yeah, it's important to remember that, right? During the course of your day and your pressures and your anxieties, because at the end of the day, you have to remember, why are we doing this? It's exciting. We do it all day long, every day, so this is just what we do. But then you got to step back and realize that there's actually a particular reason why I like to do this. So
the kitchen being the gathering place, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because in the Midwest, we all have, most people have basements and stuff like that. And, you can make a basement that as well. Yeah. But everything, it's so funny. Wherever we envision hosting people, it doesn't really matter. It's just we all stay in the kitchen.
Always. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because it's around food, but we're sitting on the countertops. Yeah. Everybody's grabbing food out of the fridge, sitting around, leaning against the countertops. They're not even sitting on a chair, having a beer, talking, no matter what's going on in the family. So it's really cool space.
Speaking of beer, I brought these Oktoberfest. We wanted to gift these to you.
I know Sam said we wanted to have a little fun. Absolutely.
Free State Brewery out of Lawrence, Kansas.
Can hand that out to the guys out back after a hard day of work. I appreciate that for sure.
Absolutely. That's our gift to you. Thank you so much for hosting us.
Oh, thanks for showing up. I have one more question that I always like to ask, because I always ask it of myself. And whether you call it a mistake or a learning moment, what is something that that you've learned in your profession that you've been able to grow from?
In our profession?
Or in life, it could be anything. And
In life, I mean, how much time do you have?
I say mistake, but I don't really look at most things as a mistake. I look at it as a way to correct myself and learn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always an opportunity.
Yeah.
I can go first, guys.
McLean's ready.
I'm ready. I was ready to go. For me, it's fairly simple. As I've gotten older in my career, when I was younger in my career, I viewed potential clients or customers very transactionally, very much what do they have? What can they do for me? What could I maybe do for them? We help each other out. We move along.
Sure.
I've learned that is not the way to do business. It is in fact a bad way to do business. Every business, no matter whether it's ours, yours, it's a relationship business. Creating that relationship, watering that relationship, growing it is 100 times more important than trying to get someone this info on some deal that I need. That it's timing is everything with a lot of in my world especially, and I've really learned that building the relationship, even if that doesn't bear fruit that day, that month, that year, is vital to my job, my social life, my family, our legacy, and it's something that I think as you get older, and my father-in-law, who ran an accounting firm here forever, he would always telling me when I was kind of trying to start my own deal, he's like, McLean, I've never once asked anyone for business, and I've gotten 95% of my business from people that have just hung out with me, played golf with me, gone to eat, and I've just naturally talked about what I did just via the normal ebbs and flows of life. And then when a life event happened, I was top of mind just because that relationship was built. So I think it's for no matter what industry you're in or what you're doing or what age in your career you are, relationships are everything, and more than ever. I really feel like it. After COVID, people are more depressed, more separated, more lonely feeling than ever. We're all just doom scrolling on a phone till we go to bed, and whether it's just for good mental health, building relationships, keeping them going, face-to-face things it's vital, in my opinion.
Perfectly said. We certainly learned during COVID that we actually do need to be around other people, didn't we?
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually having real conversations.
Having real conversations, yes.
We were talking about that the other day. It's like the amount of access we have to one another is so instantaneous, but are we really present in that moment? It's the one thing that's pressed upon us, was pressed upon us early is, and this was eye-opening for me, is when you're having conversations, just doing less talking and more listening.
Yeah.
And through that, not only do relationships, can they be nurtured but you can actually have more impact by just sitting and listening and learning and asking great questions as opposed to just talking about you and yourself and what you do. But like those things will come up naturally in conversations, but when you force it upon someone, it's not going to register. It's the only real impact that you can have, like McLean was saying, I mean, over time with people is just investing in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then through time, you will learn about what people's needs are, how they function, and build this sense of community. Kansas City is really unique because it's a big, small town. I think everyone knows everybody through a degree or two removed. And we've got a really neat business community where we can really uplift each other. And it's, the small business community in Kansas City is really unique, and everyone's very active in each other's business in an effort to propel everyone up, and you can only really do that through listening.
I love that. I try to practice this a lot, listen to understand, not to reply.
It's hard because you get excited to talk about yourself.
Very hard, but very well said. I love that. And this business community in Kansas City loves to get together. That's for sure. There's so many functions almost every single night. It's great.
And we're going to invite you to all ours.
Absolutely.
We want the vice versa.
Adam?
I would say this one was a lesson I picked up in my time on patrol as a cop. And, I would unfortunately witness a lot of really unfortunate events, and a lot of things don't go as planned. There's a lot of bad things that happen in the world that you don't have control over. And so I had to learn early on to focus on what you can control. And that has applicability across all spheres of life. So as an advisor and in helping clients, and you've heard us talk a number of times about how control and giving back people control is one of our themes. focusing on what you can control. And I think this is really timely because in a few days here, we'll have an election and none of us in the room know what the results will be. I've already cast my vote. I voted advance by mail. If my candidate doesn't win, it's okay. I'm going to focus on. Yeah, right? Not going to tell.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's right. But focusing on what you can control, because at the end of the day, you know, that election result is a blip on the radar screen. The reality is we've all got, you know, the next 4 years to live out in response to whoever's administration's running the show. So
get up and go to work the next day. And get your family and your friends. And
I mean, if you reflect back on life of some of the stuff that might have been what you considered was your hardest thing to deal with or tragedies within your family, and you look back and go, well, after that initial shock, I was able to collect myself and get through it and make the decisions I needed to make, whether it be business or personal, and it really wasn't as bad as you thought when it initially hit you. So you're right, just calming your mind down and moving through the process.
absolutely.
Well, fellas, that was awesome. Thank you. Didn't know how I was going to handle a panel of 3, but I think we got through it.
You did really well.
Yeah, you should be moderating the presidential debates. You juggled that with grace. I'm a first-time podcaster, and I felt very comfortable.
Well, we'll definitely have you back on, and we'll do some hostage stories.
Yes.
So, for sure.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Building Kansas City. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple podcast and share it. Until next time, keep building Kansas City. Take care.